Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. Emma Brooks was a young woman working tirelessly as a waitress in a bustling city restaurant. Life had never been easy for her. She had dreams, big ones, of opening her own art studio, but the realities of making ends meet kept her from even taking the first step toward that dream. On this particular evening, she found herself on yet another blind date, a promise she had made to her best friend, Jenny. As she walked into the upscale restaurant, her second-hand dress and scuffed shoes felt like a glaring contrast to the sleek, polished world around her. She didn't belong here. But Jenny had insisted. Just give it a shot, she'd said. Who knows? Maybe you'll meet someone interesting. Emma had sighed, scanning the restaurant with a nervous heart. She muttered to herself, Table 7, Table 7. Her eyes landed on a sharply dressed man sitting alone, his dark hair neatly styled, his posture commanding. That must be him, she thought, taking a deep breath before walking over. Hi, you must be Kevin. I'm Emma. Nice to meet you. The man looked up at her, momentarily startled, his eyes widening in confusion. He blinked, processing the situation before responding. Hi Emma. He sounded a little thrown off, and Emma misread his hesitation as shyness. She forced a bright smile and slid into the seat across from him, fidgeting nervously with the edge of her napkin. I know this is awkward, she said, laughing lightly. Blind dates are weird, right? Jenny told me you might be a little quiet. So don't worry, I can talk enough for both of us. He opened his mouth as if to correct her, but hesitated, glancing down at his phone. His business associate had just texted, canceling their meeting, and something about Emma's earnestness caught his attention. She wasn't like the women he usually met, polished, calculating, with motives tied to his wealth. No, Emma seemed genuine. And for reasons he couldn't explain, he decided to play along. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Right, blind dates are something else. Emma laughed nervously, trying to ease the tension. Tell me about it, she said, taking a sip of her water. Jenny's been trying to set me up for months, but I've been too busy with work, work. The man, Kevin, she assumed, leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. What do you do, he asked. Emma hesitated for a moment. I'm a waitress, she admitted, fiddling with her napkin again. Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills. Well, most of them. Enough about me. What do you do? Kevin hesitated, his gaze drifting slightly before answering. I work in tech. Emma grinned, trying to keep the conversation light. Tech? That's cool. Like coding and apps and stuff? I'm terrible with computers. She couldn't help but laugh. He smiled, a little more relaxed now, as if her nervous energy had softened him. Something like that, he said. I'm actually in a leadership role, but it's not as exciting as it sounds. His voice was calm, almost reserved, but there was something about him, something intriguing, Emma couldn't quite place. It wasn't the kind of confidence she was used to seeing from men in suits. He seemed distant, yet there was a warmth behind his eyes she couldn't ignore. For a moment, they both sat in silence. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to make small talk. So, how do you like New York? She asked. Kevin nodded, still lost in thought. It's fine. Just busy. He glanced at his phone again, but this time, instead of the usual impatience that she had expected, there was a hint of something else. Regret? He quickly pushed the thought aside, focusing on Emma's words instead. Tell me about your dream, he said suddenly, his tone softening. What's your art studio idea? Emma's eyes brightened, and for the first time that evening, she felt a spark of hope. She leaned forward, her excitement clear. I've always wanted to have my own space, she explained. A place where I can create art, where people can come together to share their own passion. I want to teach kids how to express themselves through painting and sculpture. It's been my dream for years, but her voice trailed off, and she looked down at her hands. But it's hard to get started. There's always something that gets in the way, you know. Kevin listened intently, his expression thoughtful. For a moment, Emma wondered if she was rambling too much, but before she could stop herself, she added, I guess it's hard when you're just scraping by. I know there's more for me out there, but it feels like I'm stuck. Her voice cracked slightly, the vulnerability slipping through despite her best efforts. Kevin looked at her, his eyes softening even more. There was something so raw and real about her. Something that reminded him of the people he used to be surrounded by, the ones who didn't care about his wealth, but cared about who he really was. A connection had already begun to form, and neither of them fully realized it yet. It wasn't until a few minutes later when Emma's phone buzzed that the truth came crashing down. "Hey Emma, where are you?" "I'm at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." She froze, her heart sinking into her stomach. She looked up at the man sitting across from her, now realizing her mistake. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she whispered, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. Kevin's smile faltered, and for a split second, guilt flashed across his face. "No, I'm not," he admitted quietly. Emma stood up abruptly, her face flushed with mortification. "I'm so sorry," she mumbled, grabbing her coat and bolting for the door. Kevin stood too, calling after her, but Emma was already gone, her footsteps echoing in the empty restaurant. She was mortified, but a strange mix of regret and curiosity stirred inside him. He hadn't expected to meet someone like her tonight. Someone real. It was a few days later when Emma found herself standing outside the same restaurant. Her heart was still racing from that awkward moment. She ran out in embarrassment, but she couldn't shake the memory of the man she had met. Kevin. Well, not Kevin. Liam. But there was something about him, something real. She had been thinking about him more than she should have. "I'm an idiot," she muttered to herself, standing at the edge of the sidewalk. Her fingers nervously gripped the strap of her bag, but she couldn't resist the pull. She had to know more. She had to see him again. "What are you even doing here?" she asked herself, taking a deep breath before pushing open the restaurant door. It was almost as if she were trying to erase the embarrassment, but also somehow reclaim a bit of dignity by coming back. Inside, the warm glow of the restaurant greeted her, and the soft hum of conversation filled the air, just like the last time. The same sound, but it felt different this time. Emma walked in cautiously, scanning the room. She hesitated. The place seemed just as intimidating as before, but this time, her eyes weren't drawn to the expensive suits or the polished waitstaff. She was searching for one person, and there he was, sitting in the far corner of the restaurant, looking at his phone, just as she had seen him before. Liam. Her heart skipped a beat. She almost turned around and left, but she couldn't. She walked up to him, and as she did, he glanced up. His face softened with recognition, but this time, there was no surprise, no confusion. He simply smiled, and she felt a strange rush of relief. "Hey," she said, her voice a little shakier than she intended. I didn't get a chance to properly apologize for, running out the other night." He put his phone down, his eyes still on her. "It's fine," he said, his voice calm but warm, like he had already moved past the awkwardness. "It happens." There was a brief silence between them, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. There was something unspoken between them, like an understanding that needed no explanation. Emma smiled, a little more confidently this time, and slid into the seat across from him. "I really didn't mean to embarrass myself like that," she added, feeling the need to explain herself, even if it wasn't necessary. He nodded. "I get it. Blind dates can be weird." She laughed lightly, her nerves finally starting to ease. "Tell me about it." They both chuckled. It felt easy, almost too easy. Emma couldn't help but feel the same pull she felt the other night, but this time it was stronger. "So, what exactly do you do in tech?" she asked, eager to learn more about him, to break through the vague answers he had given her before. Liam leaned back in his chair slightly, and Emma noticed how comfortable he seemed now. No stiffness, no coldness. Just a man who seemed at ease despite his initial reticence. "I work in leadership," he said, a small smirk appearing on his face. "I run a company." Emma raised her eyebrows, a little impressed, but also a little confused. "A tech company?" she asked. He nodded, a bit of pride creeping into his expression. "Yeah, it's a bit more than that, though. We specialize in development, but we're also heavily invested in innovation." She nodded, trying to keep up. "Innovation? Like new apps and gadgets?" she asked, genuinely curious. He smiled, sensing her genuine interest. "Yeah, something like that." There was a slight pause, then he added, "But honestly, it's a lot of business and numbers. It's not as glamorous as people think." Emma leaned in slightly, intrigued. Well, I think it sounds amazing. All the tech stuff and innovation. That's something I could never wrap my head around. She smiled, but Liam could see the slight tinge of frustration in her eyes, as if she was wishing she could do something more with her own life, something grand like that. I bet you could, he said, surprising her with his response. You've got that energy. Emma blinked, surprised by the compliment. What do you mean? She asked, her voice softening. He looked at her, his gaze steady. The way you talk about your art, your dream, that passion, it's rare. You could build something out of that. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected that. She had been so focused on surviving, on just getting by, that she hadn't thought of her passion as something more than just a dream. Hearing Liam say that made her wonder if maybe, just maybe, she could make it a reality. Before she could respond, the waiter came over to take their order, briefly interrupting the conversation. Emma was still processing his words when Liam caught her eye again. There was a new light in his expression, a genuine interest that wasn't there the first time they met. She smiled, feeling a warmth inside that she hadn't expected. It was as if, for a moment, everything had shifted. Maybe it wasn't just about the awkward mistake of the other night. Maybe it was something more. As the evening went on, they continued to talk, and Emma felt the layers of tension and awkwardness slip away. She found herself opening up to him in a way she hadn't with anyone in a long time. She told him more about her struggles, her dreams, her desire to start her own art studio. Liam listened intently, offering thoughtful responses and a kindness she hadn't expected from someone like him. And as the night drew to a close, Emma realized something. She didn't just want to be near him because of some mistaken identity. No, it was because he was someone who made her feel seen. Someone who made her believe that maybe, just maybe, she could build the life she had always dreamed of. As the days passed, Emma couldn't stop thinking about Liam. The evening at the restaurant had been more than just an awkward mistake or a chance encounter. There was something about the way he listened to her, something genuine in the way he had spoken about her dreams, her art, and her passion. She hadn't expected him to understand, but he did. It was as if, for the first time in a long time, she was being seen for more than just a waitress struggling to make ends meet. And that feeling had lingered long after she had left the restaurant. But Emma was also cautious. It was easy to get swept up in a fleeting connection, especially with someone who seemed so different from her. Liam was wealthy, powerful, and successful. He was living a life she could barely imagine, while she was still stuck in a cycle of survival, chasing a dream she wasn't sure she could even reach. It's probably nothing, she told herself. I'm just grateful for the conversation. But deep down, she knew that something had shifted. And maybe, just maybe, there was a chance to change her life, if she could find the courage to take that first step. It was a few days later when Liam reached out again. Emma had almost forgotten about their last meeting, buried in her daily routine, when a message popped up on her phone. Hey Emma, it's Liam. I was thinking about what you said the other night. I'd like to help you with your art. I know a place that could help make your dream a reality. Let's talk. Liam. Her heart skipped a beat as she stared at the message. He had remembered. He wanted to help. But how? And why? It was so unexpected, so out of the blue. Emma couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. Maybe this was the break she had been waiting for. She didn't waste any time. Emma quickly responded, agreeing to meet him the next day. When she walked into the small cafe they had agreed on, she saw him sitting at a corner table, his posture still the same, calm, collected, but this time, there was something different, a sense of purpose. His eyes brightened when he saw her, and as he stood to greet her, there was no awkwardness, no hesitation, just a quiet warmth. I'm glad you came, he said, his smile genuine. Emma felt her nerves ease. This time, there were no mistakes, no confusion. It felt real, and she couldn't help but wonder if this was the beginning of something more. They sat down, and Liam wasted no time getting to the point. I've been thinking about your dream, about your art. I know a few people in the art world. I could help you get your work seen by the right people. I can also help you find a space to start your own studio, something small to begin with, but it could grow. His words were exactly what Emma had been hoping for, but there was a catch. There always seemed to be a catch when it came to things like this. But why me? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Why would someone like you want to help someone like me? Liam paused, his gaze thoughtful. Because I believe in your potential, he said quietly. I see something in you, Emma. Something real. and I don't want you to give up on your dreams." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. She had never expected this, especially from someone like him. She had assumed he was just another rich guy looking to help in a way that benefited him. But this was different. This wasn't about money. It wasn't about his status. It was about her. For the first time in what felt like forever, Emma felt like someone believed in her. She looked at him, searching his face for any sign of insincerity, but there was none. Liam was offering her a chance, not because it would gain him anything, but because he truly wanted to help. "I don't know what to say," Emma whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. This is more than I ever imagined." Liam leaned back in his chair, his eyes soft. "You don't have to say anything yet. Take your time. But I want you to know that I'm here to help. Whatever you need." Emma sat in stunned silence for a moment, processing everything he had said. This wasn't just a simple offer. It was a lifeline, a chance to escape the life she had been living, to take a step toward the future she had only dared to dream about. As they continued to talk, the weight of his words settled on her. She realized that this was her opportunity, the one she had been waiting for. But as much as she wanted to grab onto it with both hands, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of doubt. Was she ready? Was she worthy of this chance? Liam had already shown more belief in her than anyone ever had. And now, she had to decide if she was going to take the leap. Later that evening, as Emma walked back to her small apartment, her mind raced. The reality of what Liam had offered her was starting to sink in. A studio, her own space, the chance to build something out of nothing. And for the first time in a long time, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. She had spent so long focused on surviving, on just getting by, that she hadn't realized how much she had been holding back. But now, with Liam's offer, she saw the possibility of something more, something real. And as she stood at the doorway to her apartment, she made a decision. She was going to take a chance. On herself. And on the possibility of a life she had always dreamed of. The next few weeks flew by in a blur for Emma. She had made the decision to take a chance on herself, to follow Liam's offer and turn her dream into something real. The thought of starting her own art studio, something she had only fantasized about in the quiet moments of her life, now seemed within reach. Liam had been true to his word. He connected her with people in the art world, helped her find a small space in a quiet part of the city, and even arranged for some funding. She was slowly, but surely, moving closer to the life she had always wanted. But as the days passed, she began to feel a strange mixture of excitement and fear. What if she failed? What if all of this was just too much? Despite her doubts, Emma pushed forward. She spent every waking moment working on her art, organizing the space, and preparing for her grand opening. It wasn't easy, nothing about this was. There were days when she wanted to give up, when the weight of the task ahead felt too heavy. But each time she thought about throwing in the towel, she remembered Liam's words. "I see something in you, Emma. Something real." That belief, that small spark of faith, kept her going. It was a constant reminder that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't just another waitress in the city. Maybe she could be something more. One day, as she was putting the final touches on her studio, her phone rang. It was Liam. She hesitated for a moment before picking up. "Hey, Emma. How's everything going?" His voice was warm and casual, but there was an undertone of curiosity, like he was genuinely interested in how she was doing. "It's going well," Emma replied, trying to sound confident, though she still had doubts. "The studio's almost ready. I've got some pieces in the works, and people are starting to notice." Liam smiled on the other end of the line. "I knew you had it in you." There was a pause, and then he added, "Listen, there's an event coming up, an art gala, actually. I was wondering if you'd like to showcase some of your work there. It could be a great opportunity for you." Emma's heart skipped a beat. An art gala? She had never imagined that her work would be featured at something like that, but the opportunity was too big to pass up. For the next few days, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the gala. The idea of showing her art to a room full of people who could change her future was both thrilling and terrifying. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized this was exactly the kind of chance she had been waiting for. This could be the moment that defined her career. She worked tirelessly to prepare, picking out her best pieces, making sure everything was perfect. The day of the gala arrived, and Emma was filled with a nervous excitement. She had never attended an event like this before, let alone be a part of it. As she arrived at the venue, she couldn't help but feel a little out of place. The high ceilings, the soft glow of the chandeliers, the well-dressed guests, it all felt so foreign to her. She was used to working in a small, dimly lit studio, not walking into a grand event like this. But she pushed her nerves aside and walked in, her heart racing. As soon as she entered the room, her eyes scanned the crowd. And there, standing near the entrance, was Liam. He looked just as composed and confident as always, his suit perfectly tailored, his presence commanding. He smiled when he saw her. "You made it," he said, his voice full of warmth. "I knew you would." Emma smiled back, feeling a little less out of place. "Thanks for this," she said. "I never thought I'd be here, showing my work to all these people." Liam nodded, his gaze soft. "You earned it, Emma. This is just the beginning." The night was a whirlwind. Emma's artwork was admired by many, and people asked questions, complimented her pieces, and even offered advice. She had never felt so seen, so appreciated. As the evening went on, she found herself talking to more and more people, and each conversation fueled her confidence. It was clear that Liam's belief in her wasn't misplaced. She could do this. She was doing this. By the end of the night, Emma was exhausted but exhilarated. She had accomplished something she never thought possible. As she stood in the corner of the room, taking it all in, Liam approached her. "How do you feel?" he asked, his voice low and sincere. Emma turned to him, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," she said, a smile spreading across her face. Liam's smile matched hers. "I knew you had it in you." For a moment, they just stood there, looking at each other, the noise of the gala fading into the background. In that moment, Emma realized that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was an artist. And with Liam's support, she was ready to make her mark on the world. The days after the gala were a blur for Emma. Her art had received more attention than she could have imagined, and her name was starting to spread within the local art community. She had sold a few pieces and had several commissions lined up. It was all happening so fast, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was finally on the right path. But there was also a lingering question in the back of her mind. What now? She had reached a point in her career that she had only dreamed of, but she still felt uncertain. Was this all she had worked for? Was this the life she wanted? She found herself thinking about Liam more and more. Not just about his help with her art, but about the connection they had. There was something about him, something real, that made her question the life she had settled for before. It wasn't just about her art anymore. It was about who she was becoming and where she was going. One evening, as she was finishing up in the studio, she received a message from Liam. It was simple. "Hey, I was thinking we should grab dinner sometime this week. How about tomorrow night?" She stared at the message for a few moments, feeling a nervous flutter in her stomach. Dinner? With Liam? She had seen him at the gala, of course, but it was always business, always about her art. They hadn't really talked about anything personal. Still, she replied, agreeing to meet the next evening. The idea of spending time with him outside of work was both exciting and terrifying. She wasn't sure what it meant, but she felt drawn to him in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. The next evening, Emma arrived at the restaurant early, her heart pounding in her chest. She had chosen a simple dress, nothing too fancy, but still enough to make her feel confident. She waited at a small table near the window, watching the city go by as her nerves settled. It had been a while since she had gone on a date, and even though this wasn't exactly a date, she couldn't help but feel like it was. She tried to push the thought out of her mind when Liam walked in. He looked as composed as ever, his suit fitting perfectly, his demeanor calm, but with a hint of curiosity in his eyes. When he saw her, he smiled, and for the first time, Emma saw something more than just business in his gaze. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice soft, making her blush. "Thank you," she replied, trying to hide her nerves with a smile. They sat down, and for the first time, the conversation wasn't about art, business, or plans. It was about life. Emma found herself talking about things she hadn't even thought about in years: her childhood, her family, the struggles she had faced, and the dreams she had once abandoned. Liam listened intently, his eyes never leaving hers. She was surprised by how easy it was to talk to him. There was no judgment, no expectations. Just him, listening and understanding. As they talked, she realized that this wasn't just a dinner. It was an opportunity for them to connect on a deeper level, to see each other beyond the roles they had played in each other's lives. Liam wasn't just the wealthy businessman who helped her with her art. He was someone who cared, someone who saw her for who she really was. And Emma wasn't just the struggling waitress anymore. She was someone who had the courage to chase her dreams and take risks. By the end of the evening, Emma was feeling a mix of emotions. She had never expected to feel so seen, so understood by someone like Liam. As they stood up to leave, Liam paused, looking at her with a soft expression. "Emma, there's something I've been meaning to say," he began, his voice serious. She looked up at him, waiting for him to continue. "I've seen you grow so much since we first met. You've changed, not just as an artist, but as a person. And I just want you to know that I'm here for you. I believe in you. And I think you deserve more than you think." His words were like a balm to her soul, soothing a fear she hadn't even known she had. She smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Thank you, Liam. I don't even know what to say." He reached out, gently wiping away the tear. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that I'm not going anywhere." For a moment, neither of them said anything. They just stood there, feeling the weight of the moment, knowing that something had shifted between them. This wasn't just about art anymore. It was about a connection, a bond that neither of them had expected. And as they walked out of the restaurant together, Emma realized that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something even bigger than she had imagined. The weeks that followed that dinner were a whirlwind for Emma. She had been working tirelessly on her art, growing her studio, and meeting new people who were interested in her work. Her life was changing, and she was learning how to navigate this new world. But even as her career began to take off, there was something else happening. The connection with Liam had grown stronger. They had spent more time together, talking about everything from business to personal life. With each conversation, Emma found herself opening up in ways she never had before. He was there, not just as a mentor or a friend, but as someone who genuinely cared. She began to realize that this wasn't just about art anymore. It was about something deeper, something that made her heart race every time she saw him. One evening, as they were sitting in her studio, discussing a new project, Liam looked at her in a way that made her heart skip a beat. There was a softness in his eyes, something different from the usual professional demeanor he carried. "Emma," he said, his voice quieter than usual, "there's something I've been meaning to tell you." She stopped what she was doing, her breath catching in her throat. She had a feeling she knew where this was going, but she couldn't bring herself to say it first. He stood up, walking toward her with a calm confidence that only made her more nervous. "I think I've fallen for you," he said, the words simple, yet carrying an intensity that took her completely by surprise. She blinked, not sure if she had heard him correctly. Emma's heart raced, and for a moment, all she could do was stare at him, her thoughts swirling. She had felt it too, the growing attraction, the way they had become so close, so comfortable with each other. But hearing him say it out loud made it feel so real, so undeniable. "Liam," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I didn't know what to think. I didn't want to assume anything." He smiled softly, his gaze never leaving hers. "I didn't want to assume either. But I can't ignore how I feel anymore. I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. And I want to be more than just a business partner. I want to be someone who's there for you, for everything." Emma felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had never expected this, but in that moment, it felt right. He wasn't just offering his support for her art. He was offering his heart. She stepped closer to him, the distance between them closing as she took a deep breath. "I think I've been waiting for you to say that," she admitted, her voice trembling with emotion. "I felt the same way, but I didn't know how to say it, or if I should say it. I didn't want to ruin what we have." Liam reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You won't ruin anything, Emma. What we have is real, and I'm not going anywhere." In that moment, everything seemed to fall into place. The uncertainty, the fear, the hesitation, it all melted away. She could feel it in the way his hand brushed against hers, in the way his eyes looked at her like she was the only person in the world. This wasn't just about art. It wasn't just about business. This was about them. Together. As the days passed, Emma and Liam's relationship blossomed. They spent more time together, balancing their personal lives with their professional ones. There were moments of laughter, moments of quiet understanding, and moments of pure connection. Liam continued to support her, not just with her art, but with every step she took toward building the life she had always dreamed of. And Emma found herself feeling something she had never felt before: peace. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she had everything she needed. Her career was thriving, her dreams were becoming reality, and she had someone by her side who truly cared. But even as things were going so well, Emma knew that they still had challenges to face. Their relationship, though real, was still new, and the world they were both in could be unpredictable. There would be obstacles, difficult conversations, and moments of doubt. But Emma was ready. Ready to face whatever came their way because she knew that she didn't have to face it alone anymore. She had Liam, and together, they were stronger than they had ever been apart. One evening, as they sat on the rooftop of her studio, watching the sun set over the city, Emma leaned her head against Liam's shoulder. "I can't believe how far I've come," she said softly, her voice full of wonder. "I never imagined I would be here, doing this, with everything that's happened." Liam wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. "I always knew you could do it," he said, his voice steady and confident. "You've always had it in you, Emma. You just needed to believe it." She smiled, feeling his words settle deep in her heart. She had believed in herself for the first time, and it was all because of him, because of the love and support he had given her. And as they sat there, side by side, watching the city lights flicker on, Emma realized that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one where she wasn't just an artist, but someone who had found love, support, and her true place in the world. And with Liam by her side, she knew that nothing could stop her now. It was a few weeks later when everything seemed to come to a head. Emma had been on a high ever since the gala, with her art studio gaining more attention and her relationship with Liam growing deeper. She had spent countless hours in her studio, working on new pieces, experimenting with different styles, and taking risks she had never considered before. For the first time, it felt like everything was falling into place. Her career was thriving, her dreams were being realized, and she had Liam by her side, supporting her every step of the way. But despite all the progress, Emma couldn't shake a nagging feeling. It wasn't about her art, or Liam, or the life they were building together. It was the realization that, as much as things had changed, there were still parts of her past that lingered. She had come so far, but she still felt like she was holding on to something she had never fully let go of. The feeling of doubt crept back in, and she found herself questioning everything. One evening, as Liam and Emma sat together at her studio, looking over the new pieces she had just finished, Liam could tell something was off. He had noticed the tension in her shoulders, the way she was distracted, as if her mind was somewhere else. He placed his hand gently on hers, drawing her attention. "Emma," he said softly, his voice filled with concern. "What's going on? You seemed a little distant lately. Is something bothering you?" Emma hesitated for a moment, her thoughts racing. She had never been good at opening up about her fears, but for some reason, she felt like she had to tell him now. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. I don't know," she began, her voice faltering. "I feel like, even though everything is going so well, I'm still scared. Scared that it could all fall apart. Scared that I'm not good enough, or that I'll mess everything up. I know things are better than they've ever been, but sometimes I feel like I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop." Liam listened carefully, his gaze never leaving hers. He could see the vulnerability in her eyes, the fear that she was still carrying, even though she had accomplished so much. He squeezed her hand gently, his voice calm and reassuring. "Emma, look at what you've already done. You've built this studio from the ground up. You've made your dream a reality. You've shown yourself and the world that you're capable of so much more than you ever thought. And as for the rest, you don't have to have everything figured out right now. I'm here for you. I always will be. You don't have to do this alone." His words, simple yet profound, hit her like a wave of relief. She realized, in that moment, that her fear wasn't about her abilities. It was about trusting herself to keep going, even when the future felt uncertain. Emma looked at Liam, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I don't know what I would do without you," she whispered. He smiled, his expression soft and understanding. "You won't have to find out. I'm right here, Emma. Always." His words brought her comfort, but more than that, they brought her clarity. She had been holding on to old fears and doubts, things that had weighed her down for years. But with Liam by her side, she realized she didn't have to carry them anymore. The next few days, Emma focused on letting go of her insecurities. She worked harder than ever, but this time, she was doing it with confidence. She poured herself into her art, knowing that she wasn't just doing it for the recognition or the success, but for herself. She was creating not just for the world to see, but for the woman she had become. And with each brushstroke, she felt more and more connected to her true self. One afternoon, as she was putting the finishing touches on a new piece, Liam stopped by the studio. He looked at her work with admiration, but this time, there was something more in his gaze, pride. "This is amazing, Emma," he said, his voice full of awe. "You've come so far." Emma smiled, feeling a surge of accomplishment. "I know," she said quietly, "and it's because of you. You've been here through everything, and I'm so grateful." He smiled back, taking a step closer to her. "You did all of this, Emma. I just gave you a little push." She looked at him, her heart full. "It's more than that," she said softly. "You helped me believe in myself when I couldn't." Liam's expression softened, and he leaned in, brushing a gentle kiss against her forehead. "I'll always believe in you," he whispered. In that moment, Emma realized that the only thing holding her back had been her own fear. And now, with Liam's unwavering support and her own growing confidence, she knew that nothing could stop her. She had everything she needed. She had the love, the strength, and the belief to make her dreams come true. And for the first time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. As Emma continued to embrace her newfound confidence, her art flourished in ways she had never imagined. The pieces she had been working on were more vibrant, more alive than ever before. She was pouring her heart and soul into each stroke, creating works that spoke to her in a way that words never could. The gallery openings, the commissions, and the praise, it was all coming together, but it was no longer the main focus of her life. She had found something deeper, something more valuable than success. She had found herself. One afternoon, as Emma was putting the finishing touches on her latest piece, she received a call that would change everything. It was from an art consultant she had met at the gala months ago, someone she had never expected to hear from again. "Emma, I hope you're doing well," the consultant said with enthusiasm. "I wanted to reach out because there's a major exhibition coming up, and I think your work would be a perfect fit. It's a huge opportunity for you. Would you be interested?" Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had dreamed of an exhibition like this for years, but now that the opportunity was right in front of her, she wasn't sure if she was ready. She glanced over at Liam, who was sitting across the room, watching her with a soft smile. He had always been there for her, cheering her on, giving her the strength she needed to push forward. She knew what he would say. "Take the chance." "Yes," Emma said, her voice steady with determination. "I'd love to be part of it." Her heart raced with excitement, but also with the weight of the decision. This was the moment she had worked for, but it would also mean putting herself in the spotlight more than ever before. Liam, who had been quietly listening to the conversation, stood up and walked over to her. "I knew you'd say yes," he said with a grin, his eyes filled with pride. "You've earned it, Emma. You've worked so hard for this, and you deserve everything that's coming your way." Emma smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over her. He had always believed in her, even when she doubted herself. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, her voice soft but sincere. The exhibition was set to open in a month, and Emma threw herself into preparing for it. She worked late into the nights, perfecting each piece, making sure every detail was just right. She couldn't help but feel the pressure mounting as the opening day drew closer. But she wasn't alone. Liam was there, helping in any way he could, offering words of encouragement when her self-doubt crept in. He was her rock, always by her side, supporting her dreams. The night before the exhibition, Emma stood in front of her pieces, admiring the way they had come to life. It was everything she had imagined and more. She had poured her heart into every canvas, every stroke of paint, and now they were ready to be seen by the world. She felt a mix of nerves and excitement, but most of all, she felt proud. She had come so far from the girl who was once afraid to even dream. She had built something real, something beautiful. As she stood there, Liam walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You're going to do amazing tomorrow," he said, his voice full of conviction. "I know you'll blow everyone away." Emma turned in his arms, smiling up at him. "I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. He cupped her face gently, his eyes searching hers. "You could have done it on your own, Emma." but I'm glad you let me be a part of it. The next day, as the exhibition opened, Emma stood at the entrance of the gallery, watching people admire her work. The room was filled with energy, with people from all walks of life appreciating her art, asking questions, and offering praise. She couldn't help but smile, knowing that this was just the beginning. She had found not only her voice as an artist, but also the courage to embrace her own worth. As the evening went on, Liam stood by her side, watching the success unfold. "I told you, you were ready," he said, a proud smile on his face. Emma glanced at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you," she replied again, her voice full of emotion. He leaned in, his lips brushing against her forehead. "You did it, Emma. This is your moment." And in that moment, as the gallery buzzed with life, Emma realized that she wasn't just celebrating her art. She was celebrating the journey she had taken to get here, and the love that had supported her every step of the way. As the weeks passed after the exhibition, Emma's life seemed to fall into a rhythm she had never imagined. Her art studio was now a vibrant hub of creativity, where people from all over came to see her work, and her commissions were flooding in. She was living her dream. And yet, there was a deeper sense of fulfillment that came not just from her career, but from the love and support she shared with Liam. They had been through so much together, from the awkward first meeting to the late nights spent working in the studio, and now they were both seeing the fruits of their labor. Emma had never felt more certain of who she was or what she wanted. She had built something real. She had built a life worth living. But as Emma's success grew, so did the realization that she couldn't do it alone. She had come so far because she had allowed herself to trust in Liam's belief in her, but also because she had learned to trust in herself. She had learned that she was worthy of the opportunities that came her way, and that her dreams were not just fantasies, they were goals within reach. And the man who had helped her realize that was standing by her side, cheering her on every step of the way. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of her studio, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Emma turned to Liam with a soft smile. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and the air was warm, filled with the sounds of the city coming to life. "I never imagined I'd be here," she said quietly, her eyes reflecting the beauty of the moment. "Not in a million years. But here I am. And it's because of you." Liam looked at her, his expression full of warmth. "No, Emma. You got here because of you. You've always had it in you. I just helped you see it." She reached for his hand, her fingers intertwined with his. "I know," she whispered, squeezing his hand gently. "But it wouldn't have been the same without you." He smiled, brushing a stray hair from her face. "I'm just glad I could be part of this journey with you. You've changed so much. I'm so proud of you." Emma leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling a wave of contentment wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she knew that she had everything she needed. And as they sat there, in the stillness of the evening, Emma realized that her journey was far from over. There would be more challenges ahead, more moments of doubt, but she was no longer afraid. She had found her strength, and with Liam by her side, she knew she could face anything. Together, they had built something real, a future full of possibilities. And as the night grew darker, Emma's heart felt lighter than it ever had before. She was no longer just the girl with a dream. She was a woman who had found her place in the world. And with every brushstroke, every piece of art, and every step she took with Liam, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be.